Do you ever wonder why, no matter how much money you make, it still feels like it's never enough? Or why building wealth feels so hard even though you're doing all the right things and working hard? I am talking with Marcella Mollon-Williams. She is a behavioral financial advisor. I bet you never heard of that. I hadn't until I met her. Marcella's work is about legacy, not just lifestyle, and she's walking us through how we can match our investments to our values and really start to eliminate the confusion, the guilt, and the fear that we've carried around money for far too long. So if you're a woman ready to step into real estate investing, but you know you need to work on your mindset first, this is the episode you don't want to miss. So tune in and we'll see you inside. Everybody, and welcome to the More for Women podcast. I am so happy to have you here today, and I'm extra happy to have Marcella Mollon-Williams here with me as well. Marcella is a licensed behavioral financial advisor, and some of you may not have heard what that is, but it really attracted me because there's a whole lot of behavior around money and finances. So she's an award-winning entrepreneur, the co-founder of Legacy Builder Group, and she helps high-achieving women, especially first-generation women like myself who are in this country, shift from income focus to wealth driven focus and impact driven focuses, transforming financial beliefs and habits that have held us back for years. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that feels like there are habits and financial stories that we've been getting from our past generations that are holding us back. But Marcella is here to help us with some of that today, and she blends over 15 years of financial strategy with behavioral science to help women shift and build business, build wealth, and build generational wealth. That's what we're here to talk about. Now, you know, the More for Women podcast is focused on teaching women how to get into real estate investing, and it ties really well with what Marcella does because real estate investing is one of the keys to building wealth. And I want to help you ladies to make sure that there aren't blocks standing in your way. So Marcella, I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, Hayya. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about what a behavioral financial advisor is, because I'm sure people have heard of a financial advisor, financial planner. First of all, they might not know the difference between the two. So tell us about what that really is.
Yes. So among the various designations there are out there when it comes to financial advisors, well, as a behavioral financial advisor, it is a concentration or combination of psychology, neuroscience, and traditional finance. So it's really about helping you and guiding you through your investment and savings behavior and wealth building behavior. And it's so important, and I think you're hearing more and more about it, although there are a lot of my colleagues who are always surprised when they meet me and never heard of it. But there's been enough research that shows now that there is a strong need for the coaching element of financial advice to help regulate our emotions, because that is the number one killer of wealth is our emotions, emotional decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, thoughts lead to actions, right? And actions lead to behaviors. So if you want to take different actions with your money, then you've got to change your behaviors, you've got to change your thoughts and your belief system as well.
Absolutely.
So how did you even come to this path?
Yes, I have been I was destined to come here. I have been interested in what makes people do the things they do since I was a kid. I'm a people watcher. I just like to sit silently. Since I was very young, and just watch people around me.
Wait.
Around me.
Were you one of those kids? You know, some of those memes on TV, on Instagram. There's the little girl with the face like.
Yes. Yes.
So even as a kid, you probably had that face that said everything, right?
Yes. Oh, that face is very hard to cover up. I am that face. Yes, that was me as a kid. I was fascinated. I said, what's wrong with these people? It's just like, and you know the thing, and it's kind of interesting how at such a young age, I was fascinated with, I didn't know the term then, but initially it was cognitive dissonance. And especially even growing up in church, I just saw how people would say they believe one thing and act differently. And I thought that was fascinating. And I feel like I've just taken that and tied it into all the areas of my life, and particularly finance. We say we want to build wealth, but our behavior shows something different. So I wanted to be I thought I was going to be a family therapist, a psychologist. I had Caribbean parents. They weren't interested in that.
That's not one of the designated fields. A nurse, a doctor, an engineer, or what was the other one? Teacher.
Teacher. That's right. Nope. They said no. Well, you could be an accountant. They would settle for that. I said I don't want to be an accountant. So I went to school for business. I ended up in business and economics because they ran a business, and they were, at least I was in a position to contribute to the business. I said, I needed to find something that would suit where I am right now. So like I said, business and economics, and then eventually life just kind of, and especially for me, just trusting in God to guide me. I ended up in the story's too long to tell now, but a very just turn of events, and I came across the dream of being a behavioral financial advisor, which tied in what I'm naturally gifted at and the skill set that I've developed through the years.
Well, see, I don't want to break into my full West Indian accent, but I can only imagine the parents going, "What's the?" Yes, yeah. And I'm sure there are women listening, people listening to this podcast, probably thinking the same thing in their own dialect, right?
Yes, because it's not just Caribbean.
Right. It's everywhere because you know what? Actually, I've heard people from other cultures say, Africa, Asia,
Yes.
if you're not in one of those professions, it doesn't count. So
Exactly.
this line of discussion around behavioral financial is like, does it make money?
Bottom line, does it make money?
Right. That's really where it all goes down to.
No, but I have to add, they were very supportive. They actually they loved what I was doing. So yes.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because a lot of the women listening have partners, have spouses, and people in their circle who they would need to be their support system when they're embarking on something new. And a lot of times it's not there because the other person is dealing with their own story and their own fears and projecting that onto the other person. So tell me about your thoughts on that.
Yes, because I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm very blessed to work with my business partner, who is my brother, my older brother. And then I have the support of my husband and my parents. So we're a very close, tight-knit family. And having that support is so important. And I'll direct it to 4 areas that I truly believe that individuals need to have as a foundation to build and have more. And I call them the legacy pillars. It's fitness, finance, family, and faith. So when I say family, that's the interdependent relationships. And I think for too long, particularly in the American culture, we lean in on independence so strongly and not interdependence. And now there's a difference. We don't want to go from one extreme, independence, and then we go
You
to
don't want codependence either.
Exactly. We're like, no. Interdependent, where you have strong relationships that are fueling one another and encouraging one another to grow, not holding each other back. That is an important wealth building tool, those interdependent relationships. And I don't think we talk enough about them and how to develop them.
Yeah, and my family, we're also very close. And I remember when I was embarking on the journey of coaching and realizing that I wanted to be a coach and start that business. And the person that I thought would be the most supportive of that actually said, "No, you always have these ideas and you never finish and follow through on them, so you should just go back to getting a job." And the person that I thought would be the least supportive was actually the most supportive, saying, "Hey, that sounds great, go for it." And so one of the things that I learned from that experience, and I think I want to share this with the audience too, is that sometimes when you're embarking on a new journey, a new path of self-discovery or whatever else you're doing, if you're going into real estate investing, not everybody can come with you on that journey. And there are going to be some people that you you don't have to disregard them, but you may not need to share that part of the journey with them, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's so important. And I shared this not too long ago. I was having a conversation after my first meeting with a new client. He just kind of expressed he had a conversation with a friend. Now, this individual just come into some money and wanted to make sure he was going to make the proper decisions. So he was talking to a friend, and the friend said, "Well, why did you hire a financial team? That just sounds like BS. You don't need that." So he's telling me this, and he's like, "Well, I'll let you know after this meeting if it's BS." And of course, he was like, "No, this is definitely not BS." But I expressed that it makes sense. Like you just said, everyone is not going to be able to rise with you in every next level. As you grow, because it's not just your portfolio that's growing, your bank account that's growing, you are growing.
Yeah.
And
Your mindset is
your
changing.
mindset is shifting. There's a different version of yourself that has to. I want to emphasize that has to grow and elevate as your tax bracket is. So everyone is not going to be able to keep up with that. Am I saying I'll get rid of them and never talk to them again? No, that is not what we're saying.
Yeah.
We're saying that you have to be clear
Nobody
about
go home and tell your
who go there.
spouse or whoever we said. We did
Please
not say
break it up with people. Divorce papers, please do not. We did
we
not
didn't say that.
Let's make it perfectly clear here. So, yeah, I mean, you just have to be clear about who the communication you can have with people, kind of like where do they fit in your life. And that comes with as you grow, as you again, develop as a wealth builder.
Got it. So while we're on that topic of wealth building, what is the difference between wealth building and building a legacy?
I like that. What I believe, and I kind of call it, legacy wealth, build legacy wealth, because wealth building, and people have different definitions of wealth. I'm not going to take that away from them, but typically wealth building is known as the accumulation of assets, building, growing your portfolio in that area. When it comes to legacy wealth building, for me, or really building legacy, there's a meaning behind that wealth. It's about generational impact. So it's about making that money meaningful. And there are particular skills and strategies that need to be in place to be able to do that. You cannot build a legacy that has a positive impact on autopilot. And this is what we continue to teach our clients. There are two areas that we have to be focused on. And just like as you're focusing on the various areas of real estate, when it comes to overall building legacy wealth, you're developing both your financial assets and your intellectual assets. So, for instance, as you are teaching your students when it comes to real estate investing, you are teaching techniques and skills, not just okay, I did this, but how did you do this? How did you acquire that property? How? And then what you're going to probably do is make sure that your children know this, that your daughter, that knows this is how we did this. And this is what you need to know to be able to duplicate it. And then you need to understand why you want to duplicate it. What is the importance? What is the impact that is going to have on people? Because if you do not, we've all seen this. We've seen people who've accumulated and mass wealth, and they feel empty. They feel like something's missing from their life. That's because we're not here on this earth just to make a lot of money.
I mean, you might as well come here and die and leave if that's all you think we're here for, right?
Exactly.
There's purpose. Yeah.
There's purpose. And we're constantly, as humans, we're constantly searching for purpose and meaning. And we kind of work in reverse. I think too often we work in reverse. We're taught, go do, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with our parents, go make some money. And then we reach a part in our life where we're thinking about, oh, well, why? Whereas if we start from the beginning of what am I pursuing? What are my values? What is important to me? What is my purpose for money itself? Then you find more meaning, you find more health. Your body responds better. There's less stress when you start pursuing the things that will provide you and generate the income that you desire.
It's interesting you talk about the why. So, by the way, you talked about you being one of those kids who always was people watching. I was one of those kids who always needed to know why. And, like you can't tell me to do
Mm,
something and not tell me why.
in a
You
Caribbean
know,
household?
yeah,
Ooh.
well, it was a problem. So, but I have to say my parents were wonderful parents, very, they let us explore and do things, but of course they're still Caribbean parents, so there's strictness in there. But
Yeah.
I distinctly remember them saying, don't touch the iron when I was little, but nobody told me why, and I touched the iron because I needed to find out. And, but it's something that I think once you understand your whys, it makes whatever you're doing have that much more meaning to it.
Yes.
The,
Oh, that's
the
so good.
the purpose thing again. And this is actually one of the reasons when we teach real estate investing, one of the first lessons is your 5 levels of why. Why do you want this? Because it's not enough to say, I just want to make money. Okay, well, because when things get difficult and challenging, if your why is not meaningful enough, you're just going to quit.
Yes.
And I think that goes for any part of life. If you don't understand why you're doing something, you're going to quit. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
so go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one point because I think it's so important what you just said as far as being a child that asks why,
Mm-hmm.
and especially as a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're dealing with women in real estate and women who are in an area where there's not a lot of us. I mean, I'm in finance. It's not
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same. It's not as many women that there are men. A lot more now, but definitely not known for women in this industry.
Right.
And so if you think about that messaging, children who grow up in households who are not to or who are not allowed to question things
Mm-hmm.
have a challenging time as they become adults and on the journey as a wealth builder,
Yeah.
as a legacy wealth builder.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to be able to question, like you just said, your why. You need to begin with the end in mind, which is one of the habits of highly successful people. Begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And you can only do that by asking that question. And what happens is if you don't know how to ask questions, see, that's what it leads to. And I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of the questions that you are
Mm-hmm.
willing to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself.
And
Ask
you gotta
others
ask
and
the
ask
question,
yourself.
like be
Have to
courageous
ask
enough
questions.
to ask a question. Yeah.
Yes. But
Mm-hmm.
that courage is not, if it's not developed at a young age. I mean, with our
Mm-hmm.
kids, my husband and I made sure our kids, we had to think, question everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did not, we welcomed the questions
Mm-hmm.
because we understood the kind of thought leaders that we were raising. And we
Mm-hmm.
were intentional about raising thought leaders.
Right.
And I'm really grateful in a world today where we're lacking that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to be in business, to run a successful business, to live the life that we desire. We have to be willing to ask ourselves why.
Mm-hmm.
Why this? Why am I doing it? There's so many why questions you can ask. So I'm just glad you brought out the fact that it stems from our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
missing information, behaviors that were developed since then that we're still dealing with as adults.
Right. So, on that inquisitive nature, I have another story from my childhood. I distinctly
I
remember
love
this.
it.
I was probably like 7 years old or something, and I saw a newspaper article, and the word sex was on there. The headline. And I remember asking my dad, Daddy, what is sex? Can you
I
imagine
love it.
an adult trying to explain to a 7-year-old? And he said,
Yeah.
it's when people get together. So I went to school the next day and I said the word. Of course,
Teacher, I'm like, oh
it was
my,
like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But that is just
love
my
it.
my funny example. So being that being able to ask questions and examine your why is the foundation of that is really in childhood. We can't go back in time for those people who are listening and they're realizing that hey, some of this goes way back. What can they do now to start to peel off those layers and address some of those issues?
Yeah, that's a great question because you're right. We cannot go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
We can start with evaluating the money messages that were implanted in us. Thinking back, just taking time to look at your money memories. And one of the exercises that we take our clients through our Family Legacy Experience program is to be able to take a look at that, to unfold. Okay, let's unpack some of the money messages that you've received as a child. One of the popular ones that we deal with is the kind of like the no talk rule. It's the taboo thing. And it's funny that you mentioned, that you said, what is sex? Because the two, no taboo, the no talk rule, that I hear the most is sex and money. Those are the two things that you're really not allowed to talk about when you're a child. Yeah. Oh, well, you can't ask your parents, how much do you make? I mean, can you imagine to ask your parents that? They don't want to hear about it. So not only you don't talk about it, or maybe it's that you saw it when you were a kid, you saw your parents arguing, and usually the fight centered around money. So that creates a messaging around it. So you have to identify and face it. You cannot confront what you cannot face. So it's about identifying and then rewriting the limiting beliefs around that. So let's say, well, I can't talk about money, or money is bad. One of the exercises I have people do is write down all the messages that you ever heard about money's the root of all evil. That just go through the process and confront those. And because you cannot erase or necessarily eliminate these memories, what you can do is rewrite the story. Rewrite the story of what you were told and what do you choose to believe now. Make the shift. And I remember for me, being in finance, I did not realize that I was developing negative beliefs around money because I saw so many acts of greed and then the strife between families.
Yeah.
And I'm a big family person. So what was happening to me, I was wired to start believing that money causes issues in families. And when that happens, I didn't realize that I was slowly being repulsed by money. And so I had to go through a process of identifying that and rewriting that, and then confronting and putting visuals of people who had a lot of money and had a beautiful family unit. I remember Bob Proctor's homegoing service. I was able to really shape my brain around that. So that's an example of what you kind of have to really confront, the things that you didn't even realize were going on, but make that shift. And then start having normalizing conversations around financial conversations with other women.
Yeah.
That's what your podcast is so important. And your group, your communities, get used to having the conversations around other women, because again, this is not a norm. We don't necessarily teach our girls this. I'm grateful for Girl Scouts who have, they have them selling and they're doing their thing, but it's still not necessarily money conversations. So definitely create a space with your friends, colleagues, where you can start having conversation and normalizing conversations around money and financial growth. That's where I would start. Yeah.
Just because I'm big on, there are many different modalities you can use for different purposes in your life to, heal or whatever. Are there any particular modalities that you could recommend in dealing with some of this past, I'll call it money trauma, money story, financial story? Any modalities that you'd recommend?
Yes. So I am big on journaling. When it comes to daily speaking what you want over your life. So even based on what I was saying, it's not that you want to continue to write, this is what happened to me. You faced it. But our brain needs repetition.
Yeah.
So at any moment you can be triggered. That's just not something you can necessarily help. You have to rewire. And I think now, several years ago, the term neuroplasticity became very popular. And then we learned, it's not something we knew before, but we learned that we can actually perform brain surgery on ourselves, rewire our brain.
Yes.
And the neuro connections that are there can be reproduced. And that's done through areas of, like I said, journaling. That's why affirmations are popular. Breathing exercises that are very important. Breathing is very important to help regulate your system, your nervous system. So again, going back to being triggered, you want to make sure that you are regulating your emotions. And I just want to hit this part quickly, because decisions, the financial decisions that you have to make as an investor are constant, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot make emotional decisions. You have to make rational decisions. We know this. It does not mean we do this because we're
Knowing and
human.
doing are two different things.
Two very different things.
Yeah.
Two very different things.
Yeah.
So I tell people the importance of knowing how to take advantage of a power pause is a wealth building tool that you want to stay on top of. Before any decision, you have to be able to know your body, listen to your body, feel the triggers, feel the emotions come to you. It's okay. Emotions are not a bad thing. They can't be bad. Feelings are not wrong. It's how you respond where you can go. You could go the wrong direction. So because information coming in goes to our emotional center of our brain, the amygdala, that's the thing. We need that. It's fight or flight. You're in a fire, you need to get out and be able to respond. Unfortunately, that same chemical response that works so great if you're being attacked by a bear has the worst impact on you if you're dealing with a bear market. And you are not doing well, or you have a financial situation, you have an issue with one of your properties, and now suddenly you receive notice that the tenants, so forth and so on. With that, you have to understand that you need to be able to regulate, pause, breathe, and allow time for your frontal cortex to process the information. Do not react. Pause to respond. It sounds so simple, but when I tell you how challenging it is for most people to do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Pause and make this. So journaling, pausing to breathe, meditating, exercising. I'm also certified stretch flexibility stretch coach because of that purpose. So there are a number of things.
Awesome. You mentioned, and I have so many questions, but obviously we don't have all day, but so many different rabbit holes I can go down with you on this. You mentioned the importance of talking to other women about money and starting to normalize those kinds of conversations. Why do you think money is such an isolating thing for women?
Yeah, great question. Because it ties, for so many of us, it ties to our identity. And identity, when anything is tied to our identity, we will fight or kill to maintain it.
Yeah.
And I'll just bring up, for example, and this is why I don't really play politics, because I tie our identity to the people, to parties, to these things. And without even saying, we see the results of that. Money is the same thing. From a young age, and especially in some of these cultures that we talked about, your identity is tied to your worth. Your money identity is tied to your worth and your value. So I remember hearing this one individual, he's Indian, and his parents told me, you have two options. You'll either be a doctor or a failure.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
That is very harsh. So now there's an identity. So for women, there's so many obstacles that we have to continue to overcome when it comes to identity, just historically. And with money being a factor of that society has used for so long to determine one's own value, it is no wonder that we respond the way we do, whether, how much you make. Oh, that's a reflection of how I feel about myself, how important I am. So talking about money is vulnerable. I mean, it's like, I always say with individuals who talk to me for the first time, new clients, I congratulate them. I always say, give yourself a pat on the back for being here and having this conversation, because oftentimes it feels like going to the OB, having that first appointment, like.
It never gets normal. You go to no. It's still an invasion every single time.
Every single time. Exactly. But it is that feeling for so many women. It just feels just being upfront with, okay, this is how much I've saved so far. This is how much, this is what I'm doing. or what I haven't. Oh, this is what I haven't done yet because you've been told what you should be doing, and what you haven't accumulated this much, and you're how old? There's so many messages that we get. The money messages are crazy on social media between news or just even the news outlets. So from a very young age, you are developing your sense of worth through the lens of money. And that's what makes money conversations so challenging, and why we need to normalize having conversation and separating your identity from money.
The money, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, as women, there's so many things throughout the course of our life that I feel like we get judged on. So you've got your looks, your intelligence, now the money, and all these other things. So you've got to overcome all of those things to get to a place where you're comfortable in just being you. You know, I think maybe for some people listening to this too, they might finally start to realize, okay, well, I can't settle this or resolve this on my own. I might need some assistance from someone. And I imagine that might be a scary concept for some people listening, to go and reveal themselves, you know, stand naked financially, or, you know, your whole belief system in front of somebody. So what advice would you give? So let's say someone listening wants to come to you, right? What advice would you give them to be able to take that first step?
I believe that how you do one thing is how you should do everything. If you, and I'm guessing that if they're listening to this podcast, they have a growth mindset. They want to grow. They want more. I mean, you're not going to sit here
right?
for 30 minutes.
Couldn't be any clearer. More.
Yes, get clear. You want more.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, and this is why I refer to the 4 pillars, look at your life as a whole, because guess what? It's not just about money. I'm pretty sure if you're struggling in this area to be vulnerable about your money, you're probably struggling to be vulnerable about your health, your fitness journey, and going to the doctor and doing the things that you need to do there. So it is really about going back to your why. You have to think about something bigger than you and make it worth it. So what is it, the thing that you want? Why are you building wealth? What is it, the impact that you want to leave? We have to understand that you are worth it. You are valuable, and the decisions that you make are just impacting you. They're impacting generations to come. Even if you don't have any children, there are people around you that need you in your greatest version of yourself. But that will not happen until you are willing to confront the tough things, the tough conversations. And then when you do, you're going to realize, oh, that felt so good to be able to do that.
You realize how big of a suitcase you've been carrying for such a long time. The burden of it.
Yes. And a lot of our clients are single females. And one of the things that I tell them in the beginning, you're about to unshed. You're about to just release. You're about to unshed, but you're about to shed some things. You're about to release by working with us, because that is one of our biggest objectives, is to remove the burdens that you've been carrying for far too long.
Right.
So it is challenging, and I jumped off of a plane once, and I went skydiving
with a parachute.
With a parachute, yes,
Thank you.
That's why I'm still here with a parachute. I went skydiving, the full thing, and I always would say, because I couldn't wait to go skydiving, but I knew the number one thing that was going to be challenging for me, and that was stepping off the plane. That, not going down, because I couldn't wait to just see that view and just to float down. But jumping off the plane, I just knew my body was going to say, it's scary, it's scary.
Yeah.
So I began to mentally prepare myself for months before that date, so that I would be ready to just go, what am I going to do to make sure I just jump? Because I was not about to miss out on that view and that experience that I already envisioned in my head I was going to have going down and seeing the earth in a way that I couldn't experience before. That is what you get to enter into once you are allowed to move out of your comfort zone, because comfort zone is the place where dreams go to die. So when you are willing to rip that Band-Aid, jump off the plane, you're going to experience the next level of more.
Right.
So I encourage you to do that and work with someone who understands, that is talking with you and not just to you or at you. That's the key. They have to have the right bedside manner who you're working with.
And it just popped into my mind too, the right person, because I'm going to go out there and say, I am not going to be for everybody. And I'm willing to bet that you are not for everybody too. And I think one of the things a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to hire a professional or work with a professional and they're going to do all the heavy lifting. To do the work and get the result, you actually have to, you've got to do the work.
You got to
Yeah.
do the
So
work.
we can only give you the tools and guide you, but you have to put your foot down and move, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're laying foundation here. This is
Mm-hmm.
foundational work. This is why I believe so hardly. This is developing the behavior that will build your legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop the behavior, the foundation. Trust me, the way they build houses these days, and you would know compared to how they used to, it's not the
You
same.
blow too hard, it's going to fall down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're developing ourselves in that way. We're chasing after the money and this opportunity, and and we're not laying a foundation for any of it. So you do have to do the work, and it is important to work with someone who is willing to guide you through that work. To be with you. I always say, hold your hands. When I hire a coach, I'm like, I need you to hold my hands. I need, that's the kind of support I need when I go through a program.
Right.
I expect, and I am that kind of coach for my clients to make sure that they are getting the support they need, because I understand how emotionally challenging this experience can be, and you're not in it alone.
Right. So women, because I work with women and I love working with women who are in my age group, 40s and above, because it's a very different stage of life. What was important to you in your 30s, your 20s, other times, it's very different now. Your body is physically changing and needs different things. So for women who are listening, who are, at that point, they've been through so much of their life already and they're thinking, oh, well, all this stuff is so ingrained. How am I going to get through it now? It's kind of late in the game. What can you say to encourage them to understand that it is not too late in the game to start something, to address something, so that you can have this life that you deserve to have?
Yeah, it's never too late. First of all, it's just never too late. And I'm 50, so I'm definitely relate to the different stages. You get to that stage where I think the blessing and the great part about aging as you get older is that you want less and less BS in your
And
life.
you care less about what everybody else thinks, right?
Exactly. That is the gift of aging. Lean
Yep.
into that.
Yeah.
Definitely lean into that, because with that comes more clarity and focus. So you don't have as many distractions as the younger ones have. And so there's a lot of wasted time, money, effort, because of a lot of distractions. Unless, you just happen to be one of younger people that are focused. So if you happen to have spent the earlier years a bit distracted, it's okay. Because there's still the time now when you have more clarity about what you want. And so going through the process and going through, identifying your values and your purpose for money, and which is what we do before we even talk about money, will put you in a place to move stronger. And that effort of moving stronger and staying focused will continue to guide you. And eliminating all the fears and worries, and removing any of the leftover wiring that's in there. That is the best benefit of being older and starting. Yet you may not have as much time on your side, but there are so many more tools and strategies now that can help you and guide you to where you need to be.
Thank you for that. And speaking of which, for those people listening and they want to reach out to you and connect with you, how can they do that?
Yes. So I will guide you first to our Legacy Pregame podcast. As you know, yes, we just started a podcast, and I look forward to having Hayya on there as well. But it's all about preparing your mind and your mission for your next money move. And we are here to just to make sure, guide you through this process. Every episode, there are tools, there's teachings. And then we have a workbook to guide you through the episodes as well. So you can connect with me with at the podcast on the website legacypregamepodcast.com. legacypregamepodcast.com. And then I'm all over social media. You can find me just Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all of those.
Awesome. Okay. So, final question. And like I said, I could have gone on and on all day talking with you about this. But what does more look like for you at this stage of your life?
Yeah, more for me. It's, I can be literal when it comes to words. More is, when I hear more, it's an addition to something. So it's like leveling up. It's adding to what's already there. So going back to foundation and being stable. In order to have more, I have to be able to move, take action. You cannot produce more without regulating your emotional responses to fear. And I think that's the biggest thing. More means adding so I'll put it this way. More means a responsibility to level up and create more opportunities, expand my vision, and be who I was created to be in a powerful way. So that's what more is for me right now.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think that's a great note for us to leave everybody on. Be who you were created to be. And if you need to get help to get there, then get that help. Marcella's here. I'm here. We want the best for you. We might not know you, but as women, we want the best for you. We know what we're capable of as women. So, Marcella, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of this wonderful wisdom. I hope you, the listeners, all of you got a lot of value out of this. Put your comments at the bottom, and we'd love to hear from you. But again, thank you so much, Marcella.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
All right.